studied BEL for 16 months and both of us left for higher studies. In fact, we got selected to the same direction. So he joined Ahmedabad, I joined DT in Mumbai. So before going there, we did a recce. So both of us went by train. So we went to Bombay first, and our Ramesh had joined 1 year earlier to MTech Computer Science. So we went there. So being a very sincere and very humble student, he took us to one of the canteens outside. So we went there. Ravi opened this cigarette and started talking to the professor and asking him a lot of questions. That's why I said questions. Ramesh was getting worried. I was also worried. The way he talked, professor was almost shaking. So then I realized, his approach is completely different and all that. And we have done a lot of adventures together. We played cricket together. We used to walk to our club in the night, sit for 1.5 hours, 2 hours. And the whole thing was real fun. And we continued that. And when he joined IIM, the first letter he wrote to me is, I have successfully become the president of NASA. So I thought NASA and IIM, those are high-tech things. So I asked him, congratulations. He said, NASA stands for Non-Academic Students Association. So actually, why I am giving this kind of introduction is that people who are really creative, adventurous, crazy, all this can achieve something which is out of the normal route. See, many of you have gone into the normal route, gone as directors of companies and all. That is one way of doing it. People like us, people like Ravi, they were always looking for something different. In fact, he was so talented that the DGM called both of us and said, you will be the editors of magazine there for BATV, which was not there anyway. Looking at us, they were giving us all assignments which were not engineering one. So that's how he has gone up. And he also observed that GDP is growing, everything is growing, but poor are poor, rich are rich, things like that. So social entrepreneurship is something where there is no development of skill or management. So that's how we have started a very innovative, unique institute in Noida area, so which is very successful. So he is the founder president. So I'm really proud to see him as the founder president of an institute which nobody can probably think of and dream of and all that. So let us give him a big hand for that. Find the way he presents himself. That's why I asked him whether you need a projection. He asked me, do you think I require? I said, see, generally projection is used to hide yourself so that people focus there and you can talk. For you, it is not required. Okay? So it's a great honor to welcome him. And I had requested him 2 months back itself, so he was free now. So welcome, Ravi. So he will take the lecture. But before that, we are really happy that Madam Bhagyalakshmi Madam is the host for today's snacks. Okay, it's so nice of her. We don't expect her. So she has been telling for last 2-3 months that she wants to host this. So it is very nice of her. Thank you very much, Madam.
Everybody would think she has cooked.
Introduced by Venkat. We were just talking outside that I was in BL only for 1 year. But that 1 year's friendships, all of us, is very special because maybe when you just came out of college, first job or whatever it is, and of course that time when I spoke, I would speak with a lot more political incorrectness, lot of jokes. But over the years, you can't be politically incorrect any longer. In those days, you could get away with a lot of things. Nowadays, you can't say. So I have to be far more serious. So I will be. Second thing was, I asked him what is the profile of people who are coming. So he said his batchmates, BL people. So I realized that this is the age group where I know when we started our lives, we didn't have PowerPoints and all that. Actually, I want to ask one more question. I know all of you have been from, NITI and, different institutions. Any of you who have worked in the social sector in an NGO? No? And anyone who has been, you worked in an...
We are part of the NGO.
Okay, you're part of. Okay, but you're like an advisor or you're working on a salary as an advisor. Got it. In which case, what I'll start by is start with the social sector and then go on to what I'm trying to do. A little bit of my life also is relevant because what I'm doing is connected to my life. So if that's okay, Venkat, I'll add that to start off. So like Venkat said, I went to ITBHU, got through JEE and all that. Then came to BEL where I was there for a year. And that time decided, actually I'll tell you the reason. My BL friends also may not know this. So when I was in school, I had friends Some of them did a BSc or BA or whatever, and I thought doing BTech was better. At least those days it was considered better. They did an MBA, and they were earning more than I was earning after doing an IIT degree, right? Because MBAs those days were. I thought, then I should go to. So a year later, of course, this fellow and me were conniving all the time. So I went to IIM. So when you go to an IIT and an IIM, you become very arrogant. You think you're like, the best of the best, meritocratic. I got through JEE, I got through CAT and all that sort of stuff. That arrogance is a very interesting phenomenon, which of course got completely smashed much later when I realized, almost 30 years later, that in our time, if you had to write JEE, you need to know English. Because the paper was in English at that time. 95% of our country, I don't think, could have spoken English at that time. So your meritocracy suddenly bubble burst, right? You realize you are actually competing in a very small pond, but we all called ourselves meritocratic and all that. So very quickly that arrogance started sort of going away. So in my own journey, I went to IIT, I went to IIM, I had a very successful corporate career. I was mostly, and of course, we are all that generation where you started working when your father was retiring, because that's the formula all of us had. So I started working when my dad retired. Manmohan Singh came in 91 and liberalized the country. And all of us had great careers because suddenly foreign companies were coming, they wanted to hire people like us. Again, we can claim that we were meritocratic and became a CEO of an international bank in a country and all that. But to be honest, it was another wave that we all, actually I certainly rode, which is the liberalization wave. So I was in HSBC, I did very well. I was the CEO of the bank when I was 45 in Indonesia. By the time I had done a project, so my son, we adopted our second child is adopted from an adoption house in Indiranagar. They have a school in a place called Neelbagh. Neelbagh is on the way towards Rishi Valley School, that direction. It's a school for children of migrant workers. Migrant workers come from North Karnataka and all that, and their children work there. And they keep getting taken out of the school because the migrant workers keep moving. So this creche was associated with that school. So then I started getting associated with that school. Then we raised money to build that school. And that was a very exciting project. We did that. One day I was sitting in my very fancy office in Dubai overlooking one creek and all that. I was head of marketing for Middle East, Africa or something like that. And I asked myself, I was about 37, 38, what is it that made you happy in life? I closed my eyes and I asked that question. I actually did that. And nothing came to my head other than that project. By this time, I have traveled the world, I am drinking wine, I am playing golf, I am meeting some big people, nothing. And for a middle class person, all that would have been a big high, but nothing came to my mind. The only thing that came to my mind was that school project. So I said to myself, well, if that's what makes you happy, then you should go do more of that. So at 39, I decided I wanted to come and work in the social sector. But then you have 2 children by then. So then you feel, oh, am I being selfish? Because if I continue to work, my children will get a certain type of education and lifestyle. If I go back, they will not get that lifestyle. We'll manage, it's okay, because when we started our lives, we managed with very little, so we could easily get back. So then we came up with this idea, me and my wife, that we'll keep 6 years, because they studied abroad, school and all they did abroad, 6 years of college education anywhere in the world, and that's all the money that we're keeping for you. Beyond that, you may not get any more money or anything, which I think is very interesting because it's also character building for the children when you tell them that you're only going to get college education and after that you have to figure out your life. That is a byproduct, but the real reason was because we wanted to come back. And so I was very keen to be in the school education space because I felt, because I told you the JEE story, I studied in St. Joseph's Indian High School here, English medium, all that. So I realized that in our country, if you want to move socio-economically, most of us have, the only route is either you win a lottery or something, or it's good education, good institutions, and then you end up bettering your life. So I wanted to work in school education. I joined Azim Premji Foundation. Before joining Azim Premji Foundation, for about 20 years, I wore a white shirt, a suit, and went to a bank because that was a banker's life, because there was a theory that people trusted people who wore white shirts. You wouldn't trust somebody with a yellow shirt. So bankers wore white shirts, according to us. I joined Azim Premji. I said, I will never tuck my shirt again. I will not wear shoes if I can. So that's why I switched to not tucking shirt, not wearing shoes, because I wanted to be myself. But Azim Premji Foundation was really a very transformative experience. because it's a big organization. So I was working in the deserts of Barmaid, the hills of Uttarkashi, the forests of Dhamtari, all over the country, and it is so humbling. You will see some school teacher in a village in Baitu in Barmaid on the border of Pakistan who is traveling some 10 kilometers daily, first cooks for the family, then comes back and cooks for the family. Everybody is telling her, why are you wasting your time and going and teaching? All sorts of, but she has made such a difference to that school in that area. And you feel, what did you do as a CEO of a bank? I mean, really, and you had all the resources, all the facilities, everything, right? That was very, very humbling. But one thing I kept seeing wherever I went is that there were amazing people doing amazing work across the country. And I mean, I'll give you an example. So, for example, I was in Dhamtari district, which is in the border of that Naxalite area in Chhattisgarh. And it's all Dalit households, and there were about 300 people, so maybe about 60, 70 households. And so they could not access the temple of the nearby temple and all that because there were some issues. So there was one person, and the highest educated fellow was a 5th standard pass. That man told the village that we don't have a temple, so the school is our temple. There is one school there. And he said all of us should contribute to this temple because this is our entire community. And every day he would go to the house and collect one handful of rice. I'm telling you, the best school I have seen across the country was that school. And he built it by collecting, and now because he said this is a temple, then it was not only the school children who had to pay, then everybody. So then the kitchen garden happened, the midday meals was going on, the teachers were coming. Incredible what people do, in different parts. Of course, I had the other experience also where, for example, at Azim Premji Foundation, we started a program which was across all the schools in Karnataka, about 52,000 schools, where we did a program to help improve the learning levels of children across the schools. And we called it a learning guarantee program or something like that. That program was running, and every year it gave us feedback on what you should work with on the teachers, how we can improve the teaching learning process and all that. And this was going, so we sat with the principal secretary of education, and he looked at this and he saw that some 70% of the schools were not achieving the mark. The idea was not to punish them, the idea was to help them develop. Of course, principal secretary being principal secretary said, please write a letter to all those schools saying, explain why you are not achieving your thing. That entire program collapsed. Because next year everybody achieved the results. Achieving results in our country is the easiest thing to do, right? So everybody achieved the results. So, so one kept seeing a failure of how do you manage these things, right? It's not the corporate way that you can just send an order, put some performance metrics, measure that, evaluate that, punish them, reward them. That works in the corporate world. Here it's very, very different. But anyway, I continued this journey and I saw really amazing people doing great work, but all of them struggling. All of them struggling, their NGOs were collapsing, they could not raise funds, they cannot manage money, they cannot manage processes, data, governance, compliance, all zero. But they're very good at their social work. So, and I used to say to them, you have figured out the more difficult part. How to improve the education levels of girls from some really oppressed backgrounds. Whereas you're going to shut down because you don't know how to manage money or manage processes or manage people or whatever. And it seemed like injustice to me because in our country so many people need this school education or whatever, public health, livelihoods, etc. And there are solutions all over the country, but it's not reaching everybody because they're not able to grow the organizations. So that's when I got into this thing of what do we do for figuring out this management aspect. I was working in school leadership and management, so education leadership and management. So we were working with school leaders all the way to MHRD and all that. So this was the journey. So one day I was sitting alone. Actually, even before that, one day I had this question to myself, Venkat, you'll love this, where I was working in Azim Premji Foundation. It's very cool to say I'm working in Azim Premji Foundation. We work in 50 districts. We are reaching some 60 million children. And I asked myself, am I doing this for my ego? Or am I actually doing it because I want to make a difference to children's life? So I put myself through my own test. It's like Venkat said, no, I keep doing things according to I said, do you have the ability to work in one school and tell the world proudly that you're working in one school? And it was my own personal test almost. And that school in Neelbagh, anyway, I was there. I was associated with them. I knew I could go there and spend a year. Meanwhile, I met somebody who asked me, can you work in a school in Kerala, in a village? It's on the border of Palakkad and Thrissur. a very interior school. Can you go there and work? Because anyway, long story short, I went to that village and worked for a year in that school. Now, when you work in one school in a village, it's even more humbling, because the challenges are, you can make fancy new education policy and, all sorts of things. Go to the ground and try to put it on the ground and make it run. It's impossible. I'll give you one, it's a very sad example, but I'll say it in this group. So I was working at school. One day, one teacher comes up and says, I have a very serious problem to report. So there's a girl in her class, 6th standard girl, who was doing quite well, and suddenly her performance was going down. And she kept asking her, what happened? So after some time, one day this girl came, and they trust the teachers more than they trust their parents, by the way, a lot of children. She says to this teacher that her father was sexually abusing her. By the way, it's very common. This father sexually abusing their own children is not uncommon. One would think that that's ghastly. But anyway, that's the case. Now the posh rules say that the moment you hear a case like this, you have to report it. And the moment you report it, that man will be put behind bars without bail till the case is resolved. If that man is put behind bars, this mother and those two daughters will get worse. You know how the villages are, right? They will first blame them. Mother went into denial. Mother said, no, nothing like that happened. This girl is saying nonsense. My husband is the most amazing person, blah, blah, blah. What do you do? Now, and by not reporting, I am committing a criminal offense now. Because you're supposed to report it. But if I report it, I know what is going to happen. That's why I say, all these fancy policies are okay. On the ground, when you have to do it, if you do report it, what will they do? They'll put the girl in the juvenile home. You should visit the juvenile home to see what happens there. It's much worse, right? So this is the kind of thing, right? We make very fancy policies, but really on the ground, it's such a... So these things are all bothering me. One day I was sitting again, one of those questions I was asking myself, you studied in IIT, you studied at IIM. I don't even remember how much fees we paid because it was nothing. It was such a subsidized education we got. I said, what did you do for the country that paid for your education? And I said, I've only given a great lifestyle for my family. We live in a good house, we have a car, and the children are studying. I said, so then that's when I said, if I could do something for the country, I would love to address this thing of how can the management of development work, NGO work, be changed, be defined so that these NGOs can do well, so that the work of the NGOs will spread, it can reach many more people. I'll give you some statistics about NGOs. So the statistics will tell you that there are 3 million NGOs. But that's a nonsense figure because even BCCI is a NGO. So, so every temple, every political party, they're all registered as not. There are about 150,000 NGOs that are really working in the country. There are only 19 organizations that have an operating budget of more than 100 crores. Only 19, and 100 crores for most of us in the world of business, today's day would be nothing. It's much less than the top 100 CSR budgets of the companies in the country today. So what I'm saying is this country is filled with mini, micro NGOs across the country. No viability, no scale, inability to, so that's the state of, but then I did I did my own studies and I looked at the history of management. So management started in the late 19th century. Industrial revolution happened, and because of the industrial revolution, they could produce goods in very large quantities. Then they realized, we need inventory, we need supply chains, we need distribution, we need logistics, we need then marketing, advertising. So it's actually engineers who created management. And I know most of us are engineers, and amongst us I can, talk about engineers badly, and I hope, engineers are very, very causal. I will define a problem, I will find a solution, and I'll put a process to how to achieve that solution. Human beings don't work like that. In fact, I remember I used to have very senior people come to work with me in Azim Premji Foundation. They'll say 250 million children in this country, if you have to solve this problem, we have to take a cookie cutter approach, we have to make one good model and then just implement it everywhere. Standardized education. And I used to think to myself, I have 2 children, I could not standardize education for those two children. Really? My daughter wants music playing loud, my son wants quiet. My daughter wants audio visual, my son wants books. Where can you standardize for 250 million children, right? So what has happened is the industrial revolution basically took over our lives. Everything we do has become industrial. So even the school education process, if you think about, it's an industrial process. It's a production line. Correct? What are you doing? When you have 5, put them onto the class 1. After 1 year, put them into the second bed. And keep doing. Somewhere you reject a few and put them back because they didn't match. It's an industrial process. But human beings are not like that. Some people will start at 5, some people will start at 3, some may start at 7. Some will enjoy language, some will enjoy math, some will enjoy something. We have to figure that out. Now, I have this view that you should pick your battles. So I am of the view that, okay, I don't have a better solution for schools, so then I'll improve the current schooling system. I don't agree with capitalism, but I can't do anything about capitalism, so I'll accept that and then work within that system to figure out. But now, for example, with AI coming, I think the schooling system can change. I can actually give every child the kind of education that child wants. But no one in AI is thinking of poor school children, right? They're only thinking of the next startup, the next $1 billion, $1 trillion company. Nobody's using data sciences to figure out how can I improve school education for the poorest of the poor children, etc., etc. So I decided that, okay, I'll give my life to this. So now I have this view, again, this is a bit of an arrogant view, that so if you want to change or define development management in this country, so you're starting a whole new discipline and you want to build this in the country, but who is Ravi Sreedharan to start development management institution in this country? The Ambanis can do it, the Adanis can do it, the Tatas have done it, the Premjis can do it. You need money to do these things. But around that time, Ashoka University was also coming up. Now, Ashoka University is not one billionaire or one state or one kingdom that made it. Many philanthropists who came together, but they were all rich philanthropists who came together. I'm not even rich. I gave my life up because I was enough. But I said, I'll do what's the right thing. I said, we have to build an IIT or an IIM for the social sector, because only then it will become something. I'll give you an example why I said that. In my time at IIM Ahmedabad, there was a program called Special Program in Agriculture. Because when IIM was set up by, in those days, Nehru and Vikram Sarabhai and Ravi Mathai and all that, they actually wanted IIMs to produce leaders for the nation. So agriculture, hydroelectric, public sectors. Where did the IIM graduates go? None of them. We went to become consultants and bankers and Unilever and Nestle. In fact, I remember in our convocation, Varghese Kurian, Milkman Kurian was our chief guest. So we were sitting there expecting to be told, you're the future of the country. He tore us apart. He said, not one of you is going to a cooperative. This is not what this institute was made. This is not what the country has spent its money for, to have you go sell shampoos. And he called us shampoo salesman. That's exactly what he called it. But that was, that time. But anyway, so one decided that if you want to make a difference, I met a lot of people. And the good thing about the social sector, unlike the world of business, is everybody is willing to meet you. In the world of business, if I wanted to go meet Mr. Premji, it's not that easy. Whereas in the social sector, if I ask from that door I come, he says, come, please, talk to me about it. So I get a lot of access to people. So I've spoken to really some of the best minds in this country. And what they said was a few things. So first was S.C. Bihar, who used to be the Chief Secretary of Madhya Pradesh. He said to me, so Ravi, you're telling me that management is required in the social sector. I said, yes. He said, you're saying that management should not be the way you run a bank. It has to be run very differently because you can't run a school like that. Yes, sir. And you're telling me that you don't know how to do this. Because I didn't know how to do this. I know business management, right? So he said, when NID was set up, National Institute of Design in Ahmedabad was set up, apparently they wanted to teach design. Of course, Western world design teaching was already there. Apparently they called a lot of people like blacksmiths, carpenters, weavers, dancers, and asked them, how do you design? So somebody said, we draw lines, we draw curves, we create layers, we look at colors in the nature, we mix whatever. And they actually wrote first principles of design. So he said, you do that. The sector has been there for 200 years. Go listen to them, learn from them, codify the knowledge and build this whole management for the social sector. So first thing we said is, okay, we'll start building theory not by copy pasting from MBAs, by listening to people who are working on the ground and then codify those knowledge. And it's amazing when you start doing that, because people are doing a lot of management. It's just that nobody has sat down and codified it and created a generalizable theory and all. The second thing was Professor Tushar Shah, who was the director of IRMA. IRMA is Rural Management School in Anand. He said, listen, what you're saying is absolutely required. The country needs it. But it's not enough if you produce some 100, 200 students. You have to build the ecosystem for this. Who is going to write the case studies? Who is going to write the books? Who is going to produce the faculty? In fact, he said the IIMs produced MBAs, or those days it was called PGDM, but he said the bigger contribution it made to the country was the FPMs. Because the FPMs went on to become professors and directors and everything, and that's why many more management schools could come up in the country. He was the one who said, you have to build the ecosystem. So we started by saying, okay, we'll first build knowledge from the intersection of practice. The second thing we said is we will work on the ecosystem, because it's not enough if you produce students. The third thing that I added to that, I was actually inspired by NLS, Bangalore, National Law School. In our time in 12th standard, most of us, if somebody said, I want to do law, their parents would have given one whack saying law. I mean, and to be honest, in our school, who went to do law? All the, thugs of the class who went into, or they wanted to pursue politics. And of course, some of the higher law families, of course, law is a dumb thing. That's a very, nepotistic sort of a line. But National Law School came up, well, now 30 years ago, I think, put a nice campus, created a 5-year integrated program, and of course, there was a very good director. Today, and it's only 30 years. 30 years is not a long in the, in attitudes and normatives changing. Law is top 3 choices for youngsters. Our courts are exactly the same. It still takes on an average 11 years for a case to be sorted in this country. So, and some of the law students, of course, have gone into corporate law where there is a lot of money, but a lot of them are, doing the regular practice in the courts and whatever else, right? So I realized that institutions is what inspires people. I was thinking to myself, I went to the IIT not because in 12th standard I knew I wanted to do engineering, but that was a cool place. If you could crack that exam and you went there, you stayed in a hostel, whatever. As a youngster, these things, inspire you. So institutions have that phenomenal role of inspiring youngsters. So we said that if you also have to inspire youngsters, not enough if you produce a program, you work on the ecosystem, how do you make it a wow institution? I'm just going to switch that off. We started this whole journey with, and I'm a non-believer, so I don't believe in God and all that. But in this journey, the number of times what you would say the world conspired to make things happen is just crazy. When I want money, somebody comes with money. When I want a faculty, somebody comes up with faculty. When I want a campus, somebody has come with campus. So I can't continue to remain rational and say that, I don't know, something is there in working in the social sector where maybe when you're doing something good, people come, and I don't know what it is, but we've had the most amazing journey. Because to be honest, how can some random 4 people, and 3 others joined me, because two people who were working with me, and one was my classmate from IIM Ahmedabad, who had no business to say we are going to build the world's #1 school of development management. World's, not even India. But we started on that journey. To be honest, when I started, I gave myself a probability of 5% of success. Because this is too big a project. But I have this view in life, which I have now followed for many years, which is that if you have a problem with something, please do something about it. Don't sit in your living room, drink whiskey, and say, what is this government, what is that fellow, what is this road. So I am of the view, whether I can solve the problem or not, I don't know. But you will do something about it. So simple principle I follow, and that has worked wonders. So this also I said, I don't know whether I can succeed, but I'll start the journey. And I started the journey like that. This is now 10 years ago. It's been a phenomenal success. I mean, Venkat did say that. So today it's become the leading school of development management. In fact, when we started, I wanted to call it development management. I had a lot of my friends in the social sector. By then I had already been in the sector for 6 years. Started telling me, why are you putting development and management together? What the development sector will say, and some of you may not like it, management is the cause of all the problems. Now you want to say management will solve the problems. So that was the attitude that they had towards management, right? And that generally that corporates are the ones who caused all the problems and inequality and pollution and everything else. Now you're saying, man, And I said, no, hello, management is not some property of the corporate world. Management is a verb. You can manage your birthday, you can manage anything, right? Why do you say management is only the world of business? And then I actually did some very interesting research. So, what is MBA full form? Masters in Business Administration. Does anybody say they do administration? No MBA will ever say that I do administration. So then why is it called administration? It should be Master of Business Management or something like that, right? Why is it called Master of Business? Then I realized why it might have happened. Because what preceded it was Masters in Public Administration. So first Masters in Public Administration was at the Woodrow Wilson College in 1880. First MBA was in Harvard and Wharton in 1900. So I realized that you need to use a word which the people understand. If you understand administration, I'll use the word, but I'll call it, business. So now I'm saying I'll use the word management, but I'll call it development. So we called it Masters in Development Management. So the same people who 10 years ago told me, why are you putting, now they've started their own development management programs. So that's great, which means that it's getting slowly accepted in the country and all that. So we started this journey 10 years ago. We do 3 things. One is we have a postgraduate program where we produce students. It's a 1-year program. We follow the Indian School of Business model. The reason is, again, there's a gentleman called Pramad Sinha who was the first director of Indian School of Business, then one of the founders of Ashoka University. He's a close friend. He was guiding. Like I said, a lot of people are willing to help her. He's the one who said, first of all, don't go into all this UGC, AICT and all that, because once you go there, then you will get sucked into that system. You have to follow, for example, I'll give you things that they would have asked us to do, which we don't do. You must have a PhD to teach. But we started by saying, I want practitioners to teach. So even a 10th standard fail can come and share their experience. So then how can I have a PhD to teach? They will say that you can't have more than 10% as field. I want majority of my work to be field. So almost 30% of our work is field. They will say you must have examinations which are, drafted by some, and there are a lot of things which you will then get caught into, and then there's the bureaucracy also. So we stayed out of the system. We said, let's do what we believe is the right thing. And at some point we'll go to the UGC and say, here is a course, please make it available. Then all the universities in the country can offer it. Because we are a not-for-profit. We are not going to benefit by getting more students. But if the country has 300 colleges offering Masters in Development Management, then that will get mainstream. It will spread, it will, then. So we've taken that approach. So we created a course that is very unique. I'll give you just a indication of what that course is. Again, based on asking what does the sector need, working with the practitioners, the first thing you need to have, if you're a Masters in Development Management, and many of your MBAs you'll understand, is first you have to understand society. Because problems exist because of society. It exists in society because of the way society is structured, society works, society behaves, etc. If you don't understand society, you will never understand why the problem exists, right? And you'll try to solve the problem at the surface, and you'll kill the symptoms also, but the problem will remain, right? It's the iceberg. 90% of it is under the water. So first thing is understanding society. Now to understand society, you need to know a little bit of philosophy, a little bit of psychology, a little bit of sociology, a little bit of anthropology, a little bit of history. It is a complex space. But you have to figure out. You may not become an expert in everything, but you need to understand how society works. Then you need to understand how do societal problems get resolved. So what is the process of social change? Now I'll give you an example. So when I came into school education, and I was working in school education at Azim Premji Foundation, I said, how does anyone ever solve this problem? 250 million children, so much of diversity, in the most inaccessible places in the country, the number of teachers, the number of schools, the boards, the exams, the textbooks, the uniform, parent-teacher meeting, ward committees, village committees. It's a very complex system. And I think and MBAs and all, you can't figure this out. It's not that easy. It is a very complex system. And then you realize that's only 10%. Because nutrition affects school education. And nutrition is a very complex subject in itself. Gender affects school education. Gender is a very complex space. Domestic violence, alcoholism, patriarchy, everything affects school education. In our country, during the harvest season, all these migrant workers will take their children back for the harvest season. So, you can't even. So, I remember there was a school I went to, and there were 2 goats tied inside the school. So, why are these goats tied? Because the teacher said, no, this girl is not coming to school because the family sends her out to take care of the goats. So she said, I'll grow grass in the school, you bring the goats here and you sit in the class. Oh my God, the stories I hear from I'll digress a little bit. I'll tell you an interesting story. It's a little funny, but you'll like it. So I was in a school in, I think it was in Chhattisgarh only. And when you go there, these children get very excited. When outsiders are coming, they get very excited. 5th standard class was going on. So we asked them, what is the class? So they said EVS, science class was going on. So I asked, can I ask you a question? They all love it. Yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes. So I said, okay, what moves faster, sound or light? So children will put out the answer, sir. So I asked one child, okay. So that child said, sound. A teacher, I could see, was getting very upset. Wrong answer. So I asked that boy, why did you say sound? He said, in our village there is one television in the Mukhiya's house. So every Sunday we go to see pictures, sir. They put the TV on. We listen to some sound for the first 1 minute, then the picture comes. What a brilliant answer, right?
Comes first.
Correct. Right? Faster, right? So sound is coming first, light is coming later. Yeah, but what will we give him? We'll give him 0 marks in our system. Because our system does not. So today, the board exams in our country, 90% of the board exams are pure memory. You just mug and you vomit. 10% there is a little bit of this one. So where will you ever, create children who can think, who can problematize, who can solve, critical thinking? No chance. So anyway, so these are all very complex spaces. So you have to first understand how do you design interventions. Now to design interventions, you have to understand the whole system. That IAS officer problem, you can pass an order, but then the whole thing collapses. There is a lake near my house where, beautiful lake. I took my house because of that lake. There was a fisherman village on the other side, Dodanakundi Lake. Those fishermen used to fish. They would come and sell the fish where our residents would go and buy. One day some BBMP person came and said, but fishing in this public lake is not allowed. So he stopped that. He stopped that. Within 2 years, that lake died. Because the fishermen were taking care of the lake, because their livelihood was dependent on the fish. They stopped it because if I can't fish, why will I take care of the lake? Water hyacinths, water died, lake died, it became an eyesore, it was a health hazard. BBMP has now, over the last 10 years, must have spent not less than 250 crores to develop that lake. These are the... So you have to understand how does the system work. You can't take a decision without thinking of the whole system, right? There are so many things that will happen. So systems thinking. Now you can bring a lot of things like design thinking, systems thinking and stuff like that to design the interventions. Now while designing interventions, if you're working in social sector, you're privileged, right? That's why you're in the social sector. And if you're privileged, you will not know what it means to be underprivileged. Which means most of us in the social sector actually don't know the real problem. It's like Harsh Mandar used to say in our class, you will never know, even if you're a girl, what it means to be a girl going to sleep on the pavement of Bombay not knowing whether you will be safe till the morning. You will never ever know what that means. Because you will never feel that. You will never know what it feels like to be a mother in Kalahandi tying a towel on their children's stomach so that they don't feel the hunger. Correct? You'll never understand that. You can say whatever you want and you can claim management and all that. So you have to understand problem through them. So how do you involve that mother in your thinking process, in your analysis, in your decision making, in your measurement? Unless you do that, you will never be able to solve. And the problem with classical management system, it's hierarchical. One guy knows it and then you implement. The government also works like that. Today the government, somebody will decide that the whole system is an implementer. Order taking. Literally, the government system is order taking, once it's passed on. So how do you bring all the system thinking, design thinking, participatory processes, etc. in designing interventions? Because if you say, okay, I want to work on poverty, where do you start? So then you have to figure out which lever if I move, because then the whole system shakes, right? That's what systems thinking tells us. Then I have to figure that out. So that's the second part. Now that you know society, now that you know how to design an intervention, now you have to come to building organization. So if you believe that mother's literacy, for example, that's something we found out in Yadgir, that if mother's literacy goes up, children's literacies will go up. Direct correlation. Father's literacy has no connection to children. That's a sad reality about men. If you educate a girl, that entire family will progress. You educate a man, he will progress. But anyway, so mother's literacy, but you have to arrive at that, you have to understand. So if I work on mother's literacy, how will it affect? What are the other things that will happen? What needs to be done? For example, in Yadgir, we worked on that. So we said, okay, we want to work on mother's literacy. So who should teach them? Now, women are not comfortable with anyone coming and teaching them, right? So we said, okay, let's get girls from that village itself to teach them. Now, where do you find girls in that village who want to teach mothers? Then we found that there are girls who finished their 10th standard but could not go to college because the family. So we said, we will send you to college, but in the evening you come and teach these mothers. So then that system works. You have to think full system. Otherwise, you will do some random, intervention, and you will create a bigger problem than the original problem. So once you decide that, you have to now build an organization. Do you build a trust society, not-for-profit, or even a for-profit company? There is no reason why a for-profit company cannot solve some of the problems. In fact, if it is for-profit, it actually is better, because then you don't have to depend on some grants and philanthropy, because then you have your own revenues also. But you have to know how to build an organization. Today, last year, or last 3 years, I think, 25,000 companies, I heard, have shut down because of compliance and governance issues. Now, you have to know how to do compliance and governance. You should file your taxes, you have to file your reports, you have to file your... Corporate world does it. This sector does not really have the manpower and talent to do that. So how do you manage money? For example, so many issues I'll give you. So 97% of the money in this country is still spent by grant money, which means donation. Whereas this country needs, and this is Niti Aayog statistics, 7x of this to achieve its sustainability development goals. 7 times. Now 7 times is not going to come by telling people, okay, please give more, please give more, please give more, right? 7x, it's not going to happen. Whereas if you take the capital markets in this country, the capital markets has given some 20-21% in the last 3-4 years. If I take out 3% of that and give returns of 18%, actually people will be very happy. That 3% will be 7x of what the social sector is spending. Now you have to figure out how to tap that 3%. So you have to come up with new innovative finance models. There are various models like development bonds, outcome-based financing, and so on and so forth. You have to figure out. Social sector, nobody is there to think of these things. For example, today the trillion-dollar companies in the world are all data science companies, right? Google, Amazon, Uber, whatever, right? It's basically large algorithms running at very high speed and monetizing it, and so on and so forth. How do you use it for better school education? How do you use it for better public health, right? So nobody is thinking of that. Now when we started, we set up a center of excellence on data sciences for social impact. What did we find? People don't even know data. What are you talking about data sciences? So first you have to start understanding what is data, how do you collect data, how do you collate data, how do you synthesize data, then you get to... So we said, okay, you don't need to become data experts. You get a Google to do it for you, right? But you need to know what to ask. It's like today's ChatGPT, right? You have to know prompting. That at least you should learn. So I'm now trying to teach the social sector prompting. What do you prompt Google so that Google can come and do this work for you? Because I met the Google head of AI in India, and he said, I have people who are fantastic at patterns. Even you give me imperfect data, I can still work with it and figure out, patterns and ideas and solutions and all that. I remember Sundar Pichai coming to say, so Google works with Arvind Eye Hospital. Arvind Eye Hospital is this famous eye hospital which charges the rich and gives free to the poor. One of the best eye hospitals in the country, and that's a case study in Harvard and all that. He said, so they've been scanning retinas. They've scanned tens of thousands of retinas. And he said the machine told us that by looking at a retina, I can predict your risk of heart attack. And he said human beings could not have figured it out because it needed tens of thousands of this pattern recognition to, come to this idea. But we need to use that in our sector. And he said, listen, my problem is my engineers are very good at patterns, but they don't understand social sector. So if somebody could explain to me what is important, is this pattern relevant or not? Then I can connect the dots and say, oh, then I can find out. So how do we bring, so I'm giving more advanced aspects of it, but even basic things like talent management. So we did a big survey in this country on talent management. What we found is that the talent that comes to the social sector has very different motivation from somebody coming to work in Google or one of these companies. For them, purpose is number one. Does this organization have a genuine purpose, and is it actually doing work related to the purpose? By the way, a lot of organizations claim one purpose but do something else. Second was leadership. Is the leader very high on integrity, and are they living up to what they are talking about? Third was money. Because people assume that social work is not about money. You can't, they also have to pay the same bills, they have to pay the same fines if they violate something. So it's not right to say that. So we did a salary benchmarking study in the country. And we found that the social sector pays at about 30 to 40% of the corporate world. Now, unless you start paying better salaries, you will never get good talent wanting to come here. So I keep telling the social sector that let's start paying, we don't need to pay investment banking salaries, but pay good salaries, right? Otherwise you will never get good talent. So the work I'm doing is obviously, figuring out how does the system work, how does the salary go up, what does the knowledge come in, where does the talent go out. So I'm hoping that, so I went back and looked at the statistics of IIMs. So the first two IIMs started in the 60s, and around 2000, so by about 35 years of work. So when they started, I met some graduates of the 1960s, late 60s. So they also told me that when we graduated, nobody wanted to hire an MBA. They said, the company said, I know what an engineer does, I know what a chartered accountant does, I don't know what you do. What is this MBA, what do you do, right? It was very difficult, they didn't get good jobs, right? The engineers were paid higher salary. After 12 years, the first IIM graduate from IIM Calcutta became a CEO of a public listed company. By the time I was doing my research, which was about 40 years later, 50% of listed companies in the country had CEOs from 3 institutions. That's a staggering statistic, right? Just 3 institutions produce 50. Today that number has come down significantly, but I'm saying at one point in time. So I believe that if this institution continues for another 20-30 years, if we have 4 or 5 branches across the country, 50% of future CEOs of social sector will come from this background, and they will change the way the social sector works. Because then you will not only you have to bring the human aspect to it, there's no doubt about it, that is very critical, but they'll also bring technology, they'll bring data, they'll bring artificial intelligence, they'll bring people management, they'll bring all sorts of things. And I believe that's what will cause scale. So I'll give you why that is very important also, and I'll stop so that we can have a conversation. Sorry, I'm doing okay on time, no?
No, it's okay. Yeah.
Okay. So today, if you look at India, okay, let me give you one more historical statistic. In 1947, when India became independent, obviously, I looked up the development indices, and I looked it up because my daughter was studying in UK, and one day she called me crying, saying that one friend of hers told her that India is what it is today only because of the British. You would have been a horrible country if the British hadn't ruled you. Your railways are because of us, your this is that, whatever. She was very upset, and she called me and saying, Acha, is this true? So I of course explained to her, but then I wanted to actually find the data. I've done a lot of data, I went back some whatever, but I won't get it all there. On 15th August 1947, the average life expectancy of an Indian born around that period was 23 years. Can you imagine? If you were born at 15th August 1947, your likelihood was to live up to 23 years. That was the state of this country. Poverty was 92%. There was only 8% who was above the poverty line. Poverty line is some $2 a day or something like that, right? Some ridiculous figure. Of course, there were epidemics like you cannot imagine. Culturally, you were smashed, right? Because the system demolished you intergenerationally, right? Over 250 years, that's several generations of. I remember suffering, when I went out to work because I was in a HSBC, which was a white bank, I used to struggle to work with the white people. And I used to have to work twice harder to achieve the same growth that they would. And I used to wonder, why is that? And I realized eventually, actually, what my forefathers have suffered stays in your DNA, and that's a very interesting concept. Anyway, you were culturally smashed at that time. You had 350 million population. Who's going to rule this country? You don't even have educated people, you don't have healthy people, you don't have any system in the country. What are you going to do? And I looked up the newspapers of that time, international newspapers. All the newspapers said, India will call the British back in 3 months' time because you're a basket case. There is no way you can manage 350 million people because you don't have a civil service, you don't have a governing knowledge, you don't have officers, you don't have anything. I was doing the same statistics about 10 years ago. Life expectancy went from 23 to 74. Literacy, which was almost 0, has gone to close to 80 now. And I can go on. I mean, it's in, and 60, 70 years is not a long time in the history of a nation to make such progress. And given that you started with really pathetic conditions. So now if I draw the baseline here, now you're got very highly educated, your life expectancy is good, your health levels are good, your highways are good, your beds, hospital beds are good, etc., etc. Imagine what this country can do from here. So I honestly think this country can be an amazing country. That's number one.
Just 1 second.
I was saying that if you look at the country today, and the country spends about 8% of its GDP on development. And it's about $350 billion that the country spends on development in this country today. We are growing at about 6.5% per annum. In fact, last quarter was 8.2%, right? So it could go up. If the government has its way, it will push it up to 7, 8%, whatever. But IMF projections, Niti Aayog projections, etc. are saying that we will be anywhere north of $25 trillion by the time India is 100 years old, which means 2047. About 20, 21 years from now. It's not so far away, right? If you continue to spend the same 8% of $25 trillion on development, that's roughly $2 trillion. $2 trillion is bigger than the entire GDP of this country about a decade ago. So the amount of money that's available for development is huge. And it's so huge that this country has not seen it in a millennium. This much of money that's available for making a difference.
Where is money? Who's handling this?
So I was going to come to that. Correct. So 95% of that money is spent by the government.
Exactly.
Correct. 5% is spent by the not-for-profits. Having said that, the 5% has a larger impact than 5% because it's catalytic, it is influential, etc. But 95% is spent by the government. But I'll come back to that question in a minute. So the point I want to make is that this country has not seen this sort of opportunity. But the fact of the matter is, you can draw poverty lines and all, but in my opinion, out of the 1.4, 1.5 billion people, 1 billion people should be having a better life than the other 500, 400 million is having. You can say, oh, but they have poverty line, all that. I'm not getting into all that. I just, as a fellow citizen of this country, it's unacceptable to see the lives that some of these people are leading, right? And that's a 1 billion number. So this country has an opportunity to make a difference to those 1 billion people in the next 20 years. But it's a window, because beyond that, the growth rates may not be the same and a lot of other issues will happen. One big issue will happen, which is the country would have become the most unequal country in the world. Today, India is the second fastest growth on inequality. Russia is number 1, we are number 2. And inequality is not good for neither the rich nor the poor. It is bad for everyone. Most social problems in the world, in fact, there's a famous sociologist who said, including obesity, is because of inequality. And we are going to head towards inequality. So there are two possible trajectories. One, we become the most unequal country in the world. Crime rates will go up, violence will go up, all sorts of nonsense will happen. We have the youngest population in the world, right? And it's a bubble. Almost 13 million people every year are coming into the job market. We are not able to create jobs. We are only able to create about 300,000 jobs a year. So there's a huge problem there. But the second problem is your school education is so bad that you're not producing quality students. So now they won't even get good jobs because you're not even competent for jobs. So now what happens? Inequality is staring in your face. I can't get a job. What am I going to do? Correct.
Some way to get.
Correct. Some way to get money. If not, start hating those people first. Over time, crime will go up, etc., etc. And if you're not educated, then it's very easy for the crime world to pull you in, right? Because I can entice you with all sorts of... So these are risks that you run if you go in the inequality. But if we spend this money properly, we can become the most amazing country the world has ever seen. And you can't learn this from anyone else because nobody else has done this.
Correct.
You're the only country who will be doing it for the first time. And you can create something that is just the most amazing country in the world. And as a social sector person, inherently you're optimistic. So I believe this possibility exists. But you need the talent to spend that money.
No, the problem is 95% is spent by the government. And government, first of all, don't have the talent, nor the intention, nor the inclination. So what to do with them? And government is ruled by some people. And they have IAS people down. The IAS people also not interested. So where are we?
Yeah.
So we have to focus there. Right?
Correct. So I'll tell you where I am. Like I said, I believe that there are some battles I can't fight. There are some battles I will fight within the system, right? That's my view to life. So my view of the government system, because at Azim Premji I worked a lot in the government system and I have somewhat of an idea. I personally think, and this might be a very contentious statement I'm making, please accept it, because if you get into that, then there's no... That actually everybody wants the good of the country. Now they also want to achieve their political ambition, their bureaucratic ambition. That is also correct, which is how a system works. Now the system needs to figure out how does the country progress while the politician achieves, while the bureaucrat achieves. That's a complex story. But I have studied the policies, and because I was in school education, I've studied the education policies of India and the top countries, so Finland, Singapore, US, and all that. I think our policy is one of the best policies that you can read, and you should try it. Take any subject, you will find that our policies are among the best, because I think we have the best bureaucrats in the world. Really, some of the bureaucrats are really the brightest minds of the people. The problem is that for every 1 rupee spent in development, the effectiveness, I don't have a report, but this is a little ad hoc, is 15 paisa. So the inefficiency is 85%. Now, you and I in business would have lost our jobs very quickly if you were running at a efficiency rate of 15% or a loss rate of 85%. We need to take that 15 to 35, 40, 50. The world will change. Right?
Where is this wastage going in the 85%?
So in the execution.
In the writing.
So, no, that is one part. That slowly, because of right to information and all that, that's come down. It's still there, but it's just inefficient. Like I said, I can't fight the corruption battle, so I'm not going there. I will fight the management battle, which is the inefficiency that exists. I'll tell you why the inefficiencies exist, right? Many reasons. First, I'll give you the attitude reason. So I have an IS officer friend of mine who's just going to retire. He's a very senior guy. I asked him, what is it like to work in the IS? And he said and he's a close friend, so he gave me an honest answer. He said, Ravi, first 20% of my life, I wanted to make a difference to this country. That's why I joined the IS. He could have joined, he was from IM. He could have gone and earned, but I wanted to make a difference to the country. That's why I went there. Then you realize that nothing is going to happen. Then you'll get some good opportunities, then you do good job. Sometimes you'll get a crap, politician working for him. The last 20%, you don't rock the boat. Because then it can affect your retirement, it can affect your posting, it can affect your all that. That's one side of the story. But the other side he told me was, and this is interesting for all our careers, he said 20% of my life, I got to make a huge difference to this country. I really did things that made a difference to people's lives, huge geographies, etc., etc. 20% of the time I hated being in the IS because I had some corrupt politician, I had some dirty bosses, I had whatever. 50% was just administrative. So sometimes I wonder, is 20% of your career, if you can do wonders, is that a good enough number? I mean, for most of us, if you ask me, if you get to 30, 40%, you're in an amazing career. Because all of us, end up in jobs where half the time you're keeping the system status quo, you're not disturbing it. And then when you get an opportunity, you do some real amazing thing.
15% can be equated to this 20%.
That is the reality. Anyway, so I'll tell you where my humble involvement, because I'm of the view I will not talk, I will do something, right? So what am I saying? I'm saying that in the government system, the policies are great. So new education policy, Manrega, this, that, other are all great. But by the time it comes here, that is a huge loss. So if you see the system, they are all order takers. There is no management at all once it comes down. Even the training programs are, this is the program, this is the DA, this is the forms, this is the reports, this is what you have to do. Is anybody teaching them people management, accountability systems, participative processes, systems thinking? Zero. Now, how do you expect them to then have accountability and so on and so forth, etc., right? So you have to figure out how do you bring management into the government, which is where now my correction has started. Which is, I am saying it's not enough if you work with the NGOs. That's just one small portion. The big elephant is the government. So now I'm trying to say, okay, how do I get development management into the government system?
Can I add?
Yeah.
I work for some time in a company called National Institute for Smart Governance. It is set up by the central and state government only to address this elephant of efficiency
Governance.
Governance. I was there. Within 1 year I got frustrated. Nothing happening. Headed by IS guy. He is more interested in his promotion and becoming the secretary rather than anything like that. And then he's got that you scratch my back, I scratch your back kind of policy with others.
While I'm here, correct.
So he just left it and came back.
You're absolutely right. So what I have found is that there are 1,700 such institutions in the government system, which is set up for capacity building of government officers at various levels. And I'm not talking about the Labasnas, which is the Lal Bahadur Shastri. No, I'm talking about at the district level, at the state level, and so on and so forth. There are 1,700 institutions. What I've realized from my work at Azim Premji Foundation is, if you call the government officer for a training to your place and send them back, it's the most useless thing you can do. Because they come for a jolly, they will enjoy the training, and they'll go back and they'll be transferred. So anyway, you call 1 year later, that guy says, "Illa sir, nani bag forest dali dini." So school education to forest, you can't control that, right? That's how the system works. So what I realize is, you have to put development management inside the government and get them to talk about. Imagine if Narendra Modi stands on the ramparts of the Red Fort and says, "We need development management in this country." All these bloody IAS officers will go running after that. Now, I'm not saying I need to do that, but that's a narrative building side of things. But what I am taking as a strategy, and I would love input because that's really planning stage for me, is I'm saying, I met a politician. I met this guy called Sandeep Dixit, who lost the elections in Delhi. He's Sheila Dixit's son. But a very good mind. He's an IRMA graduate and all that. And I asked him, "What do you think I want to work in the government?" He said, "Ravi, let me tell you first, there is no formula on how do you get your first government contract. That some batchmate of yours is there, you sat next to somebody in the flight, I don't know how you get your first contract." But he said, "You do one good place. Doesn't matter where. It could be a district, it could be a ministry, it could be a program, it doesn't matter. But you take one place and do a good job of that place. 3 to 5 years, bring development management, talk about it, get the people to. Now ideally find a place where there is a good head of the institution." What you said is absolutely right. There are many institutions that are run by people who don't care. So find a very smart IAS officer. For example, there is an institute in Bhubaneswar that I met the officer who's running that place. Dynamic fellow. And you will find in the government system, you will find 20% who are in that cycle where they are very dynamic. If you find a dynamic person in a place, you go there and introduce development management. So all these ideas of how do you manage accountability, money, data, whatever. And over 3-4 years, show results. The beauty of the government system, according to Sandeep, is once one IAS officer is getting results, then the other IAS officer wants to know, why am I not having this system? He'll send his director, please go find out what is happening there. If one political party says, "Oh, it's happening in Chhattisgarh," they'll say, "Why is it not happening in Karnataka?" That's how the system works. So I'm hoping that we will try and get some ministry, some state, some district, and start this work. If it catches fire, hopefully it will spread. Don't know, but like I said, my journey in life is, I will do what I can, and I'll do what I believe is the right thing. If it catches fire, then that's great. Now, all of us can't control our destiny, right? And I say this to people that, as a student of physics, the world has some close to 8 billion people. And 8 billion people are pushing the world in a certain direction. Which way will the world move? The world will move where the net force is positive. That's where the world will move. Now, will I move only because that's the way the world is? No, if I think this is the way the world should go, I will push in this direction. If many more people start pushing in this direction, then the world will eventually move in this direction. So I'm hoping in the next 10 years, now my wife hears this, she'll be shocked, saying, "You're already 64 years old, you're supposed to be slowing down, you're pressing the accelerator more and more." But I really hope we can take development management into the government. I've met a lot of senior IAS officers who believe that the government wanted to do it. In fact, at one stage, just 15 years ago, they had a budget for any project, they had 5% for management. But nobody knew what to do with that 5% management, and thereby it was wasted. So if you're actually able to introduce courses, introduce the DNA, build faculty who can do this, and the government starts talking, imagine that when they're hiring government officers and promoting government officers, they assess them for management. Then it starts building, but that needs building the narrative at a country level. At the country level, like an MBA, everybody wants to do MBA. Even the bureaucrats want to go to Harvard and wherever and do their programs and all that. We have to first also make it a very exciting thing to study development management. We need to build institutions like an IIM and an IIT. So there are lots that needs to be done, but that's I hope the trajectory for the next 10-15 years. But I honestly think we are sitting at a golden moment in this country's trajectory, but also a very dangerous one. We can go like this or we can go like that. So,
Related question. Thanks for bringing a lot of optimism in all of us, frankly. Today, social media, newspaper. Every page you take, all the negativities. But what you said, 1947 versus now. Always we feel India there are big problem, but it's going at that rate compared to many other countries.
Correct.
So it makes, so has it been whatever the negativities we are seeing, is it we feel it's deteriorating? You feel it is not. It has been the same, and in fact there is a way we can even improve.
Yeah. So
Because I'll tell you the reason. We, in fact, as a spark, like Venkat would have told, we also want to do some contribution for social.
Correct.
One of the things we are thinking is, I was suggesting was how to make people more optimistic. Because children, especially at that age, if we can introduce some positivity, I think it will have some positive results.
I agree.
Because now kids also on social media, they see all crimes, and any channel you take, no positive. There is no channel to show some good things happening.
Yeah.
All channels show negativity.
Yeah.
So we were all debating. Then we said, how can we do that? And we took some other topic. You seem to be really channelizing things which will make all of us optimistic, and we can influence it.
Yeah.
So,
No,
any
so
comments on that?
you know, few things. First, on the optimism. If you take the history of humankind over a long trajectory, it has only gone better and better. If you look at it in short cycles, you'll see a lot of. But if you take a long trend, it's humankind has not seen this kind of prosperity in its recorded history. Right? I mean, it's a different problem we have created. I mean, the worst species to have come on this planet is also human beings, right? I mean, we have destroyed, I mean, number of species that have got killed is like exponential growth, you know, every year. But anyway, I won't get into all that. But from a humankind, and I'm only now taking humankind, I honestly think you're on a phenomenal trajectory, right? Are there issues? Plenty of issues. Now, we're all engineers, we're all, you know, process people. By definition, with more knowledge, with more people, with more aspirations, with more ambitions, it will get more complex. The problems will get worse. But that's just par for the course.
Positive problem.
Yeah, I mean, it isn't natural, it is to be expected. But, I mean, I keep saying this crime rate in this country will go up by 500%. So, when I'm discussing facts, I will talk about that. But somewhere I have this optimism, and I don't know what it is about this country, right? This country has gone through all sorts of crap, right, at different points in time. And I have no political leaning, so nothing to do with the political narrative or anything. But we seem to have come out every time. And I find that fascinating, and I suspect it's something to do with the culture of this country. It's, I don't know what it is. It is something very, very, you know, long term that I find this country comes out every time even better, even better. Though at one point you feel this is hopeless. 1947, most hopeless situation. But today, look where we are, right? So, I'm optimistic, but I also don't fool myself to say that there are no problems. There are serious problems that are existing in the country. And today, some of the problems are also the world. There is a certain narrative building in the world which is moving more and more towards the rich. I mean, there is a book by Thomas Piketty, I don't know if you've heard of his book, Capital in the 21st Century. He's taken data over 200 years and proven that capital will make money and labor will never make money. And thereby the rich will always get richer because you are putting money, the money will get you more money. I mean, take America, right? America, salaries have grown like 1 or 2% over the last decade. Whereas the fortunes of the owners, which is the capital, has gone 5 times, 6 times, whatever, right? Sorry, you were saying something.
No, I just wanted to ask you whether you have any commentary on the disruptions because of technology. Because many large organizations have already seen disruptions and then a lot of things happening without the human involvement. And they have shown a lot of good results in terms of profitability and everything. The same thing can be applied to government and also learning. You alluded on the rural learning.
Correct.
What I'm seeing here, now what's happening in the world is that a lot of technology is available for people to be acquired through online learning. Right? There's no need to go to university. There's no need to go and pay fees and all that. But you can still get world-class knowledge and then be better than somebody who would have done good learning in their good university. So the same thing can be applied to even rural children. With artificial intelligence coming, they can even teach the children in their own language and they can flourish. So if not exponential. Can we expect some non-linear growth by
Yeah.
these kind of disruptions?
So I was at a Thai conference in California just last year, and I was listening to a lot of presentations, and everybody is talking about, if you're not with AI, you're a dinosaur, you're gone, you will be written off. That was the conversation. Everybody was talking about AI, and lots of ideas on how do you make money, how do you, plan your growth, how do you invest, all sorts of Not one presentation in those 3 days was on how do you use AI for the poorest of the poor. Not one conversation. Today, all the conversations are dominated by how do you make money. So a lot of these AI conversations, how do I make an app, how do I get a startup, how do I leverage it, how do I multiply it, how do I capitalize it. Maybe that's the first phase. And, so keeping my optimistic side, I hope the next phase will be how do we make lives better of people even if I don't make money and all. Because the potential is humongous of leveraging technology for a better world, for a better planet, for a better society. I think is huge, because I'll give you a simple example. Literacy, I use literacy as 1947, literacy rate was 8%. Literacy meant that you could write your name, right? Today they talk about foundational literacy and numeracy, which is, do you understand arithmetic, do you know how to read? The beauty of technology is today the fishermen in Kerala who go out don't know how to read and write, but they get audio visual messages which tell them where the fish prices are better, what is the climate weather condition when you're going out today, without reading and writing. So suddenly it's democratized so much, right? It's taken a lot of people into that ability to use a phone, access data, access information that they could never do. Yeah, correct. So a lot of that sort of thing is happening. But I'll tell you the problem also. The problem is the technologist. The technologist thinks that she knows or he knows everything. I said that earlier problem, right? But unless you connect to the society and do solutions which connect to the society's problems, you can be doing damage. You can be actually causing bigger problems. So my request to people are always, hey, you engineer, please go talk to one MSW. And you both sit together, you will create the most amazing solutions. But if the engineer decides, I know, I'll create an app for poverty. Bangalore is filled with that, by the way. If I meet people in Bangalore, everybody wants to create an app for, some solution. And by the way, that is also fascinating, how development is looked at in different. So if you go to Delhi, everybody wants to know which government officer you want to know. If you go to Bombay, they want to know how do you make a for-profit business to do this. If you come to Bangalore, everybody wants to create an app. But the technology, if it's done as a technology-only solution, it's very dangerous. But if that technology talks to a lot of people and connects the dots, it can be super powerful. I honestly think, so education has not been disrupted as much by technology as some of the other fields like finance and all that. I think the biggest disruption is going to come in education in the next decade. Because like I said, school education has not changed in the last, Macaulay wrote all sorts of crap in his policy, but the school system was the same even then and it's the same even today, which is, 100 years later. But I think if we use AI, today all of us know, right? If I keep my phone on and I say Maldives while I'm talking to you, next thing I'll see, Maldives travel agency, hotels, options are coming, right? If technology can do that, surely it can listen to a child and understand, okay, next I should show her a picture of a leaf and then explain to her green color. And maybe I should use a song because she likes songs. Technology can do it today. But is there any company, Google, sitting and saying, how can I improve the life of children in Odisha or the health of women in Bihar or anything like that? It's not happening. But huge potential. My hope is that that's way.
People like Aziz.
A gentleman called Periodi who was working in Yadgir. Yadgir was the most backward district of Karnataka in school education. And we were doing a lot of work there. And we had been working there for years and years. By then it was about 6 years of work. And nothing had changed in the results of the 10th standard school and all that. So I remember this call with Periodi, and I'm sitting in Bangalore, and I asked Perry, so how is everything going in Yadgir, Perry? Perry said, Tumba chanaide. So I said, Perry, you're saying very good. Are there results? Not there is, 6 years, same result, no change. Sir, adu nan gotilla, but going very good. So I said, okay, why are you saying it's going very good? So children are very happy. Correct. No, that is what matters, because if children are happy, they will study. If they study, they will become confident. If they are confident, they will achieve a lot more than if you just achieve results. Results can also be achieved by caning the student and, beating the student and all that sort of stuff. And I remember asking him metric. I said, but how do you say children are happy? Sir, they are burping, sir. So, but that is how society works, right? It's like in a forest, right, in Madhya Pradesh, that forest dweller does not need data to know whether this year the mangoes are going to be good or not. It's only you and I sitting here who need some data and some God knows what. So we have to figure out how do we change the management where we listen to that forest dweller, where we listen to that community and then take managerial decisions. So I agree with you, but there are a lot of changes that need to happen. Again, yes sir.
You talked about the efficiency, increasing from 15% slowly and all. One is the financial proper flow to the right people and other things. But I think there is still some sort of a social blockages and constraints which are there.
Huge.
Especially in the rural areas and other things. They don't want these people to come out
Yes.
and succeed and all. So how are you going to assess that? Any thoughts around
So you have to get to the root of the problem. I'll give you an example. In Rajasthan, I was with a lady working in some villages. So, Swachh Bharat, right? You will see that toilets have been built, villages have been declared ODF and all that. Whereas actually when you go there, you'll see that, So, this lady was asking these women, we were sitting with a group of women, okay, why is it that you're not using the public toilets? Because otherwise, they explained to that in their life, they have to be within a triangle from their house, where the men always can see what you're doing, who you're with, etc. Okay? They said morning 4 o'clock when I go to do my morning job, that is the only time the men don't see us. All the women sit together, they give some loan, they take some this one, they tell their story, they get some advice, all that happens. So unless you realize why is it that they're not using the toilets and understand that they have a different social need for doing what they do, you will never solve the problem. What do? We will say, okay, you need toilet allowed, toilet. Next thing we'll say, oh, it's not functional, we need water. Okay, we'll put water. And then we'll say, but they're still not using. Then we say, oh, they're shameless people. Right? We immediately write them off. I've heard so many people say, even in skilling is a very big thing in our country, right? Because we have to create jobs. Oh, that fellow doesn't have any work and I'm giving him a job where he can get 10,000 rupees, but he doesn't want to take it. He's a bloody lazy fellow. No, he's not a lazy fellow. It's more complex. He has different aspirations. His household believes in a very different idea of what a good life is. So solving the problem has to be done in a systemic way, and the only way it can be done is by involving the community and getting them to decide. So I was in Orissa last week in a village called Mahuda in Ganjam. They actually, the social work team, Gram Vikas, first sits with the villagers and they have a process. They sit like this only on the floor, of course, and create a village demands list. So they actually ask the villager, what do you want? And then go back and sit with there and say, are we meeting what the villagers want? So, yes, sir, yes.
Assuming we are not already stretching the time too much. Actually, two questions I would say. One is I would like to know what has been the progress of the development institute which you are referring to. And second thing is, looking at 2047, for example, what would be the three big visionary things you would like to see?
Yeah. So first on the institution, so we've done 10 years of work, and in my opinion, I think we have proved the proof of concept. I think we are now convinced that development management works. Our recruitment has been 100%. Our salaries are the highest in the social sector. All that's going well. So clearly there's a demand. Slowly more and more students are applying. So proof of concept has happened. Now I want to do the NLS, what I said, which is how do you now make this a full-fledged institution? How do we do that? Now philanthropic capital is not easy to get, so you have to use it very judiciously and all that. So I've come up with a hub spoke and cloud model. I want to have 5 campuses, which I'm calling hubs. The campus in Delhi we have to buy, because if you want to give master's degree, you have to own a piece of land. In this country, that's how the system works. So we will own that piece of land. After that, my view is, why should I spend money on infrastructure? In Mysore, Swami Vivekananda Youth Movement has said, why don't you do the program in my campus? I'll go do it there. Nayanta University is coming up in Pune. They have said, why don't you do your program here? We'll go do it there. So I'll create 5 hubs to cater to all parts. Second is the spokes. I was saying the work with the government or work with large NGOs. I find that the work is better if you go and sit in their system. So go work in the district, in the ministry, in the whatever. So spokes, again, no cost, because then I'll have people who are going and sitting there. And cloud, this is the big one which, I feel engineers engineers have told me can work. Today, 95% of the work in this country is in vernacular, whereas we teach in English. So what are we doing? We are catering to the top organizations who actually don't need you. You know, the organizations that are working in the hinterlands don't speak English. So what my engineering friends are telling me, and I believe it's correct because intuitively it sounds right, I want to use AI to produce learning content for different levels in an organization, entry level, mid level, senior level, in all languages, using AI, so that I'm not doing it. The old days we would create Lego blocks and we'll assemble it, then we'll permute it and all that. Now using AI, people are saying you don't even need to create the Lego blocks because the system can learn and create content and all that. And of course, once I know you, then I know your learning style, I know what you learned last, I know where you've reached, I know what your challenges are. Today, like ChatGPT, right? It knows my language, I don't need to, everything work. So I want to create a virtual university. So that's on the institutions front. But the more important thing is I want to make it wow. Because that's when youth will want to come and study that. We have to inspire the youth to come. I have a desire to create, the Spic-Mac, all of us in our college days. Spic-Mac, in my family, there is no cultural bone at all, zero. But today I enjoy classical music, I enjoy folk dances, only because Spic-Mac I got exposed to it, right? It increased the cultural awareness. I want to do something like a Spic-Mac in colleges across the country to raise the social awareness. Can I take speakers, go to colleges, talk about, today India has become an India and a Bharat. Your and my kids don't realize there is caste, there is religion, there is all sorts of issues. They think, no, all that is gone, maybe in the past it was there. But the reality is, because they live in a bubble, right? Now, somebody asked the question, one of the questions that came earlier, suddenly I remembered, is people like us who came from middle class, lower middle class back, and I'll come back to your 2047 question. So when I was in, and most of us, I'm sure, when we were in school, we went to the ration shop for our groceries, we went to the public hospital for our hospital, and we went to Kendriya Vidyalayas and government school, or maybe a convent school, for our education. Once we reached a certain level after 91, none of us go to the government schools, none of us go to the public distribution system, none of us go to the public hospitals. So we don't have any skin in the game anymore, right? So now I don't care because I want to make sure Manipal Hospital is doing well. Do I care that the C.V. Raman General Hospital is doing well? No, I don't care about that, right? So what happens is, as we grow, it's just a human thing. We kick the ladder that we also grew on. So sometimes we are the problem. We are not, ideally, now that we have grown up, we should now figure out how do I help others come up. But that's not a normal tendency. Coming back to, so the institution, I'm hoping we'll make it an IIT, an IIM, whatever. But I honestly think, and sometimes I'm very ambitious on these kind of things. I call it moral ambition, which is that India imported engineering. We learned engineering from the West. We learned management from the West. We learned medicine from the West. We can export development management. I don't think you can learn development management anywhere better than in India. The complexity, the size, and the intellectual capital that exists in the country is humongous. So I honestly think we should be the number one country for development management, exporting development management, helping Africa to figure out, South America to figure out, Southeast Asia to figure out. I honestly think. So 2047, you asked me what's the... At a very simple level, I'm hoping there will be at least 100 organizations who have a 100 crore budget and touching 100 million people. This is the NGO world. I hope development management enters the government system where they are all talking about management. Business also, by the way, went through that journey. Business also was purely owner-driven businesses. Over time, they realized, no, professional managers are better because the owner will actually make more money if he has professional manager. Same thing I hope will happen in the government and the social sector. And if that happens, we will actually achieve not only an economically Viksit Bharat, but a socially Viksit Bharat. So in 2047, if development management gets mainstream, and for me the metric is 300 colleges are offering masters in development management in this country. 100 organizations that are at least 100 crore budget. Today, 19 organizations, not a single organization reaches 100 million people. The largest organization in this country reaches 38 million people. It used to be CARE, now CARE is gone, but CARE was reaching 38 million people. Unilever, Hindustan Unilever, guess how many people it reaches every year? 800 million people. How do you make this sector reach 800 million people is the challenge. And yet this has management, this one doesn't have management. So those are my aspects. Mainstream management, large organization doing impact at scale, professionalize this whole discipline, and India becomes a role model for the global south. I think it's possible.
One of the recent happenings in the government is people from different walks of life, people who have done very well, they have been inducted as joint secretaries. So what you were talking about, management, development coming in the hierarchy, it has been already brought in. I understand about a dozen of people from different walks of life have been brought in. But joint secretary.
Correct.
Joint secretary is a very senior.
Correct.
He has a lot of access
Correct.
down the line.
No, so government has opened to the lateral entry as an idea.
Lateral entry.
Correct. No, it's a very
a lot of what you talk about.
Correct. Management idea.
Mindset, attitude.
Correct.
The other thing is, Dr. B.M. Hegde made he had made an observation that he and Mr. Modi were traveling from London. Only 2 people were there in the business class. He came and sat by his side, and he came to know that he is a doctor. And he asked him one question: how can I make people of Gujarat healthy? For which this man told, we should start when the fetus is in the mother's womb. So he took down notes, I understand, went back, after some time called him. He was standing to receive him. One full day he has sat how to make children or the health of this one over a period of time better.
Correct.
Now, this is the type of mindset, what is required or what you are rightly pointed out. Very nice.
I have a couple of questions. I don't know, you are running it like an organization to create this syllabus. What kind of organization?
So we are a not-for-profit. We call it's called a Section 8 company. Section 8 is not-for-profit. Not-for-profit means you can't pay anything back as dividends to the shareholder. So whatever, if you make a profit, you put it back in the organization. We don't even make a profit. We run on a deficit, so it's all grant funded. So it has to be an organization, but we are a higher education institution. So
But if you not align with the UGC,
I will.
but earlier you were not.
No, so far we haven't, but now I've reached a place where I want to give the curriculum to UGC.
Because that degree, whatever,
It's important.
it will not be recognized.
Correct.
You don't have it.
Correct.
Like how would they were
So my 5-year goals, for example, is to have a campus, because only if you have a campus I can give a master's.
Acres they demand.
Huh?
30 acres.
No, that's for the university.
University.
But for a single institution in a city, it's 0.5 acres. There's a builder who, again, world conspiring. One builder came and told us, I have a 2.5 acre land. I will build a campus for you to your design. When you have the money, you buy it from me. Till then, you pay me rent. So we're going to have a campus. So first we need a campus. Once you have a campus, you get accreditation, which means I give a master's degree. Once I give a master's degree, I want to do specializations in climate, in gender, in health, in whatever. Then I want to do PhD, because I have to create faculty so that other colleges will have. Then I want to take this curriculum and make it available to other colleges so that it can
now, currently, before your UGC accreditation,
without
what were the graduates'
certificate.
certificate?
I don't know if you know this, the Indian School of Business today has the highest fees in the country, 47 lakhs or something like that. They don't give a diploma or a degree. Certificate, because it's an 11-month program. Huh?
Even Srishti was
Correct, Srishti was like that, exactly.
recently Manipal.
Srishti now has become correct, but otherwise,
What is the curriculum?
so the curriculum, I call it, we first start with the context, and then from context to mission, which is the problem, from the problem to designing interventions, and then from there to the organization, and then eventually the impact, which is monitoring and evaluation, scaling and all that.
It's all on the ground?
Yeah. So it's classroom and field, but it's I'll give you an example of how intense it is. So an average master's program, you do about anywhere between 400 to 600 hours of work. That's what a student would do in a master's program. For us in 1 year, we do 1,200 hours. So it's like a double intensity. So what students tell me is that I could not follow my hobbies, I could not do anything during this 1 year. But they also tell me if it was not 1 year, I wouldn't have come here. Because in 1 year, the opportunity cost is less, right? So if I can, for example, people don't go to Azim Premji University and come to us because there they get scholarship. So there they may pay only, let's say, 2 lakh fees. In our place, they are paying 5 lakh fees. But that 2 lakh fees, that 2 years of income gone, that is 15 lakhs. So your actual cost is 17 lakhs when you study there, versus here in 1 year you are only 5 lakh fees plus 7 lakhs of income loss is still 12 lakhs. So children are obviously, in fact, new education policy, my view is in the future people will not stop working at all. They will do 2 credits here, 3 credits here, add it all up and create a degree, because nobody is going to spend 2 years doing MBAs and all that in the future.
The formulation of this team was from different sectors.
Yeah.
Or is it they come as consultant and they
So the way it started is, when we started we didn't have money. So what we did is we had a visiting faculty model. So I have a concept called a bricolaire. So bricolaire is a very unique pedagogy where one person is attached to 20 students.
Okay.
The faculty coming first, some IAS officer will come and talk about, some NGO will come and talk about society. Then one marketing manager will come and talk about marketing. Then one scale strategy person will come and talk about strategy. So the bricolaire is working with the student to help them connect all the dots to understand. But you said values, but this marketing fellow is saying something else. So now how do I connect the dots? And connect it to myself. And I'll tell you some very fascinating things we have attempted in the higher education space. So one thing I never agreed with in my own time, and I think, Venkat jokingly talked about NASA, right? I've never believed in grades, because grades kill the joy of learning. If I really like a subject, I want to like it. I don't want to do it because I get the grades, right? So we didn't have any grades. So students love the program. Now because of accreditation, I have to have grades. So I've now introduced grades. But the learning was much better when I didn't have grades. And I told them, you're wasting 1 year of your time. If you don't want to learn, that's your... Now, immediately they make them much more serious students than if you put it the other way with invigilation.
Even in our NGO, initially it was directly linked to, you go to the intermediate level, and now it's purely, they should feel they have done.
Correct.
Otherwise you go back and continue. There's no fixed time period.
Correct.
But the interest has increased.
Correct. I'll tell you something very interesting we did in our college. So when we were starting, I wanted students to understand the context of India. Because if you understand the richness of this country, you'll really admire, what does it mean to be a Naga, a Malayali, a Himachali, or whatever. So I wanted them to understand. Fortunately, from the first batch, we have students from minimum 20 states. Minimum 20 states. So from all over the country we get students, and we get tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 towns.
How do you attract those students?
So the youth spread the word, yeah.
Oh, it's more by the...
Yeah, we do a lot of social media,
okay.
But after that, and today now 60% of my students come by referrals from the old students.
Okay.
And that's a very good sign, right? When your customers are referring...
If they come with their own interest,
Correct.
then the
Far more.
result should be so much.
Correct.
Is it a residential program?
So it's effectively residential, but we don't have any hostels. So we tie up with hostels nearby, so they stay there. But now the new campus will be with a hostel.
How many students per batch?
So we used to take 60 to 90 students, but the current batch is 104. Next batch we want to take 120. My economics breaks even at 180. Till it takes 180 to 200 students. Till then we run at a deficit. So about now just under 600 students have graduated. Nine batches graduating, 8 batches graduated. So we were doing 60 to 90, but during COVID, because of physical distancing and all, we did a batch of 30 at that time. But now 500-600 have graduated and doing amazing work. So I'll give you a distribution. About 10% have started their own organizations. About 10% from the old batch have gone for higher education. The balance 80 are distributed across grant-making organization to grassroots organizations. Full range of organizations. So they work in education, health, climate, gender, all sorts of things. And 90% of our first 2-3 batches are still in the social sector. That's very important, because most social sector schools will not be able to retain these children in the social sector because the salaries are low, etc. So we've realized you have to build a DNA in the student. It's not only the cognitive inputs you give, you actually build a mindset of the student through that DNA then keeps them in the sector.
What is the source of funding?
Actually, it's
Funding
we are already 8:15.
Okay.
So we can ask over interaction.
Over interaction.
Okay, when you are having snacks, you can always ask him. Okay, so it is very interesting. At the same time, people are leaving. So we'll ask Viru to propose vote of thanks, and then we'll continue the discussion.
Makes sense.
Also, you can share my LinkedIn phone number, so we'll just be in touch, because I love to talk and I'm very happy to. Yes. No, thank you.
Dear friends, I think in truly Venkat style. Sir, please. No, please. When he has assigned this job for me, I was a little bit tensed. Because if I don't do a good job, no, he's very straightforward. He said, no. So, thank you, sir. Thank you very much for sharing your story. Rather the spectacular journey what you have done, which reminds us that, no, as you rightly said, when you are an IITN, when you are an IIM guy working for HSBC in Indonesia, now also we see, no, they have ego or ankara.
IIM stands for IIM.
So even most of us, in our class, right? As you said, we all came from maybe above poverty level or into the middle class. We aspire to get into a government college. Then even in our class, some are brilliant, some are good in academics, some are good in music. After graduation, they all went to different fields, and most of them are successful in their own way. But what I got from your talk today, okay, wherever we work, no, obviously we work for ourselves. At least to take care of our parents or whatever our family members and children. And, sometimes we also work for our manager, at least to help him so that his problems are solved. And few of us realize that we are actually working for the company also, because company makes product which goes and some people get direct, indirect employment. Many of us never realize that we are working for India or whatever it is, for the society. But you said, at the age of 37, you realized, what is my purpose? Why I am here? So I suddenly felt that, right? I think you realize that other than doing karma, you want to do karma yoga. That means selfless work for the benefit of the society. And now also even that Indian Companies Act, now in every balance sheet, they say we should report about people, product and planet. How are they taking care of the people in the organization, what are their products, profit, etc. And what they are contributing to the planet, that is environment. So you have chosen a field, like development of people, ultimately giving education is the one which makes our Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So you have actually given inspiration for this. You have realized when you are 37. Now most of us are in 60s. Now, as Venkat said, that spark ignited all of us. Thank you very much, sir. So on behalf of Venkat and all of us,
small bit of spark. Thank you so much for patiently listening. I also, you said 60. Today 60 is the new 40. Yeah. All of us have at least another 20 years ahead of us. So I don't think we should assume 60.
Maybe the best.
I think we can do a lot. Huge. In fact, I think this generation, because of the way the population curve is, there's a huge young population coming up. But I think people are forgetting there's also a huge aging population who are very successful and achieved a lot. If we can connect those two populations, it can be very powerful. Thank you.